I needed to play that music because you need to get blessed. That's like getting baptized from being racist. You listen to... No, actually, that probably makes you more racist, listening to Britney Spears. Okay, I'm done. Let's just go to
Yellow.
Phil?
Yes.
Phil Strahl, senior colorist at Red Bull Media House, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so you're from, what, Austria?
Yes, I'm from Austria, born and raised.
So how's that?
Fine, I guess.
I meet a lot of European guys, and they like hate where they live. So.
Oh no, it's really fine. It's probably because I'm not working where I grew up. So yeah, that's fine for me.
Okay, so I mean, Red Bull Media, as in like the Red Bull energy drink.
Exactly, yes.
So what perks do you get working at the Red Bull Media House?
Well, of course, there's free Red Bull.
Are you serious?
As much as you can drink, yes.
So, like,
and you usually notice the new guys, they go straight for the fridge and come back like with like 10 cans, and then at the evening they're all shaking. So yeah, this is biggest perk, I guess.
I'm not going to ask if you have diabetes. I'm going to ask how much diabetes you have.
Actually, not that much because I'm more of a coffee guy.
Okay.
So I've had my fix in the first couple of weeks, and I just went, yeah, thank you. Okay, I had enough. I had my fill, and now I'm just back to the good straight old cup of joe.
Yeah, so type 3.5. All right, that's pretty good. So
yeah.
Let's see. So with being a color grader, and I was explaining this to the audience earlier, what that job entails generally, but so obviously your work is in post-production. So what I'm trying to figure out, so you're at the mercy, in a way, you're to the mercy of whatever went on in production. However the DP did whatever, you're sort of in the mercy to it in a way. So what I'm wondering is, what is the most annoying footage to work with? What is the most just footage that makes you lose faith?
We're having those kind of footage quite a lot, actually. So I'm drawing from the well here. Right. Actually, today is a good example. I've had a shot that was shot in log color space. Okay. And the problem was it was recorded to H.264, and this is bad because at one thing you think, if I shoot in log, the colorist is going to be happy. The problem is the footage was so compressed. Then when I pumped up the saturation and the contrast, and there were no colors in the skin tones, it was just one color, and this was just horrible. So essentially, I just had to dig up what color there still was and use a lot of noise reduction and stuff like this. So, for example, this is one of the most troublesome footage. Then on the other hand, there's stuff which we also have, since we're a big facility, and there's a lot of stuff that just gets recut and then crops up the next year. This is usually is stuff that was once mastered, and then they come back and say, for this year we also need this clip from 2 years ago, but we can't find the original file anymore, so you have to work with the footage that's already graded. If you're lucky, you were the one who graded it last year. Most of the times it was just some outside facility that just supplied it, and usually the grading is more on the bad side.
But as a senior colorist, does that title mean that you're the head of everything, or you've just been there a while?
For me, senior colorist, as far as I'm concerned, it means something different at each facility where you are. For Red Bull Media, I'm one of two senior colorists. One, in the first respect, I'm the most senior because I've been working there for 8-9 years, I think. So I have this seniority. So and on the other hand,
how long have you been working as a colorist? Just period. How many years?
Since I started by Red Bull, actually. So it was 8 to 9 years, I guess.
So at any point were you ever working in an analog workflow?
No. Color grading, as I know it, I came straight to it when it was digital already. I started with Apple Color, so this was my first tool.
Okay, so when was the switch to Resolve?
That was, I don't quite know the year, but Resolve has been out since quite a while, and I just knew that with Apple Color, at some point it's just like you growing out of your children's clothes in a way, because it only had, I think it was 8 rooms or 8 nodes in a way, and you really had to start with node number 2, because when you want to make changes before that, well, if you started with number 1, you could just transfer it to 2 or something. So right. it was getting really tight in a way to work creatively.
Let's see. The one thing I'm trying to figure out, DaVinci Resolve is, and I'm pretty sure it's free for anyone. So anyone listening to this, if you want to be a colorist, you can pretty much get Resolve Lite. And I don't even think I've paid for Resolve yet. And I don't get hired as... Or no, actually, my first paid thing in cinema was as a colorist, but I only paid $50, and it was for a movie that no one's heard of. But let's see. Now, I color for my own stuff, and I'm still using the free version.
Sure, it works fine.
Okay, so you've been in it for 9 years. How hard did the DSLR revolution make your job?
It was crazy. I mean, I think I started when the 5D was the hottest new thing, and they gave everyone who mentioned it in passing gave a 5D and said, "Yeah, now you're a camera person, go shoot something."
Yeah.
And the footage was abysmal occasionally. Sometimes you get people who really knew what they were doing, but I had this one guy. I don't know his name. It's probably good in a way that I can't mention his name. I only know it as Mr. Fingers, because he had always his fingers very close in front of the lens, just for some cool shuttery artifacts, as he called it. And it just made my work as a colorist really terrible, because you always had this red cast from somewhere. Is it a lens flare? No, oh my God, it's Mr. Fingers again. So yeah, since everyone was running around with a 5D camera, and usually just switch to auto exposure, auto white balance, auto iris, and you're good. And
so I've had this. How often are you meeting the people that you get this footage from?
Rarely, if ever.
Okay,
that's the problem.
How many other nicknames have you given people just based off of their footage?
Not so many. Usually it's like the biggest one is Mr. Fingers, because I think I saw him once, and this is why I could give him a nickname. But
was
apart
Fingers
from that,
huge?
it's probably, yeah.
Okay, good.
He looked like a quarterback, actually, yeah. So this is why I didn't say it to his face, even if I had seen him.
My last thing with footage, do you hate GoPro footage as much as I do?
Of course, absolutely.
All right.
And since they were in the action sports genre, you could probably guess how much DSLR and especially GoPro footage ends up on my dissecting table. So it's quite a lot, and you just have to make do. I mean, the first GoPro was the worst one. I mean, hands down, this was just terrible. And it got better. So and now I think the latest generation of GoPros, they're actually pretty okay. I mean, they still look like GoPros and the rolling shutter stuff, but I mean, apart from that, it has been so much worse before that I'm cool with how it looks right now.
I hate GoPro footage so much. It always looks like GoPro footage. I don't know
exactly.
And so it's I don't know.
You can tell it from a mile away. I think in The Hobbit I saw 2 GoPro shots. Me and my wife, we were in the theater, and we just went unisono. Yeah, GoPro. It was like 2 shots in the river barrel sequence. And it just stands out like a sore thumb. It's really, you can't even if you're a big Hollywood production, you just can't shake the look of GoPro. It's impossible.
Well, so I just remembered Red Bull Media House. You've been there for 9 years. Did you have anything to do with? It was this huge viral video that Red Bull put out. It was where the guy skydives from like really, really high up in the air. Was that footage that you touched?
You mean the Stratos jump from the stratosphere? Yes, this one. Partly, yes.
Oh, cool.
Okay. When it happened, we were all on call. Said, is he gonna jump? Because since we were in Austria, we were on a different time zone, and everyone in the media house, even the editors, we were just all on call. And the first time, I think he didn't jump, and the second time he did. And essentially, yes, the news cut was graded by yours truly. And yeah, but this was a real big thing with, this was one of the better times in terms of color workflow, because before the whole event, and there was this huge social media thing coming up beforehand, half a year. And yeah, we really had some kind of color guide and look guide, and we developed, actually the look of the whole thing. But I think there was a documentary which wasn't done in-house. I think even BBC had something. I'm not quite sure. But yes, at least for the news cut, I was happy to do the color grading. But the problem was, for the news cut, we had those again crappy footage from I think it was some kind of radio-controlled cameras or something. I mean, they had the big red cameras there, but I've never seen that footage myself. I only had the crappy broadcast signal, and it was green, it was purple. So yeah, I think this big green ball down below, this must be Earth. So let's better make it blue.
So the one thing that I notice is color grading is something that young filmmakers, they sort of discover early on, and they'll look at the colors in a big motion picture, and they'll see, oh, that orange looks cool there, that blue looks cool there. And the issue I see a lot of them running into is that they think that all the color that we see in the visual image is all done in a computer. They think that that's all just power windows and so on and so forth. As I learned on set things, I was realizing that production design and lighting itself makes the job of, your color popping a lot easier. So what I want to ask you is, when we see great color in, I guess, a standard motion picture, what % of that would you say is production design, and what % of that would you say is the color grading doing all the work?
Oh, I think this depends from production to production. But on each bigger budget film, of course, you have a production designer and art designer and a cinematographer and director. They all sit together and decide beforehand, do we have color symbolism? And if so, what color stands for what character or what emotion or concept? And even with wardrobe and props and everything just works together to achieve this vision. And I've worked on some short films where this was where I was even in the loop before, which is very uncommon to have a colorist before the fact of shooting. And this is really great, because everyone has the same vision and knows what to look out for, and on set, the lighting and everything just works together to get this vision really out there. And this is when you get the best results. But usually it's just, we shoot something and everything is done in post. Let's fix it in post. Let's find the look in post. And those are the worst clients or the worst projects, because, there's nothing in there. And you really, you have to just work it out. And sometimes, especially when you're going against the grain of the image, it's really hard. If it's a warm image and you have this sunny, bright day, but they wanted to make it cool for some reason, and the next day they decide, no, warm was actually better. And this is probably the hardest part. If you have an indecisive client, and also, just that's nothing there that goes for that asks or calls for a straight look. So the best thing is to decide upon your color early, or what your vision is, and work with the DOP, especially for the lighting. You can do so much with on-set lighting. Sometimes when you work with a great DOP in color grading, it's just a little bit of contrast. Pretty much that's it. And sometimes it's
definitely, because when I first understood the process of shooting flat and then in post sort of tightening it up, when I first started, I was like, how do I get this to look good? How do I get this to look professional? And then it wasn't until years of researching lighting, and then I'm crafting all this stuff in camera. It's a lot like audio in a way, where you can't you must start with a good recording and make it better. You cannot take a mediocre recording and make it great.
Exactly. There's only so much you can fix in post, and still word hasn't traveled that you can't fix everything in post. I mean, you can fix everything in post, but it depends on your budget, right? Takes too long, or it's too expensive, or usually just both. Both options,
With filmmaking, usually the director or the DOP, they're going to get, you always hear about the behind the scenes or the influences of them. And what I'm asking of you is, as far as, so like a director will say, 70s movies are my influence or whatever. And with a color grader, I assume there's always some influence or something along the lines of that. And so what I'm wondering, is there room for independent influence as a color grader when a lot of the times you have to sort of do what the client was setting out to do?
So you're asking if can you be creative as a colorist in your own right?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, because it feels like you're so to the mercy of what production did. Sometimes, yeah. Usually depends on the client. Most of the times, if you're lucky, you can develop with the client together what you see in the picture or what they want in the story. Usually with directors and more narrative focused people, it's more the story. I want these kind of emotions, and as a colorist, you say color psychology, and we can tease out. It's a little bit like with music. If you notice it, it's too strong, and this is usually with emotions with color. And but in terms of your creativity, well, I think this reminds me a little bit of the question as a compositor. I come from visual effects. We had the same discussion. As a compositor, can you be really creative? And the creativity usually comes in different forms. Either when you work with a person together to arrive at a vision. This is, of course, the best thing. It's a collaboration. Or sometimes it's just your way of creatively arriving at the result with all the issues the footage has, or something really, really ironed out. So it's more, on one hand, it's more, let's say, technical creativity, just to get around all the flaws and really, really make the picture shine just as your client wants it to. So, then on the other hand, you have clients who say, just show me something and get wild and show me some suggestions, and then they run with one or they take it as a reference. But it depends who you're working with. And when you're working, for example, with agencies, commercial agencies, of course, they have their clients and they have their branding. So it's pretty much you're just their mouse pointer. Let's say I'm working with you. What is a piece of media that you find you go back to influencing you and influencing the choices that you make with the overall image?
Again, it depends. It really depends. Usually, let's assume you're about to shoot a movie and you get in contact with me about your color choices or what color choices you have. Usually, the process for me in those rare, very rare occasions is to just ask you what your influences were, what you want to say with the movie, what kind of emotions you want to evoke, what kind of era you want to evoke. Like you said before, you want a movie to feel like it was shot in the 70s. Well, if you give it a pretty orange and green or orange and teal grading, it won't look as 70s like, even all things considered in terms of props and wardrobe.
Because I mean, back in the film days, they didn't have these very little specific power windows and all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
So there was no touch.
You want to achieve at a very analog look, for example. Even if you do it digitally, you want it to look analog, like the film stock from the 70s, for example. And once I know what your influences are or what you want to achieve, then I start gathering my mood boards and influences and watch movies from that era just to get myself attuned to that kind of vision. And then I would just give you some examples. Does this look right for you? Is this the mood you want to evoke for this kind of scene? And then it's just a collaboration. It's a creative back and forth.
You watch movies from that era, though. But what if you watch two movies and they're from two different film stocks? Those could be two different color responses, could they not?
Of course, yeah. I mean, in the end, it's just maybe it's unifying those two looks, or maybe it's just one aspect. You like the color rendition of the color blue in that Fuji stock, for example, but you still want this other thing. I mean, at the end, let's stay at the 70s movies. I mean, you don't want it to be completely authentic to the 70s. You want to just evoke the feel of the era and of the movies. And usually, I mean, 99% or even more of the people won't really know exactly on the top of their head what the actual film color rendition of a certain film stock was back then. But it's just creating the atmosphere and the feel of it. And as a colorist, you can do this really subtly, much more subtler than music, for example, because of the color. You you don't talk about color if you're not a colorist or in the film business. You just
Well, I mean,
watch it.
I find myself always going back to Spider-Man from 2002. If I can make it look like Spider-Man from 2002, I'm happy. Not Spider-Man from 2012 or 2017 or 2025, but
the old one with Tobey Maguire, right?
Yeah.
This
is what I really got to know, because a lot of people will sort of do something, or they'll see something in the preview window. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I like doing that," and it just sort of comes so intuitively that everyone starts doing it. And they're not really thinking about what's happening with their image. So what I got to ask you is, what is the ugliest trend you see in modern grading, post DaVinci, post DSLR? Where now everybody has a camera, everybody has access to grading.
I would say it's the overuse of LUTs you can download.
I never use LUTs. Wow.
Yeah, me neither. In my opinion, and this is just very my personal view, I only use technical LUTs to transform from one color space into the other. For example, from log to linear, or log to sRGB or something. But there are a lot of creative LUTs out there, and the problem that I have with LUTs is, for one thing, it's like a black box. You don't know what you get out, or why was this achieved? It's just a mapping, and it either looks good or not. And the problem with most people who use LUTs is that they just try around a couple of LUTs and then go with the one that looks the nicest or the best on one picture. But before you use a LUT, usually you have to, or ideally, you have to balance everything, get everything in the right white balance and contrast space, so that a LUT just remains and it keeps its coherence. And this is a problem that I see over and over, especially on the web, on some Vimeo videos of some people
Vimeo,
who just, for example, I can see through the LUT that the white balance is off, because suddenly it's just green, because they have this duotone where the shadows are green and the highlights are orange, for example, and suddenly it's all green. So okay, this was exposed to little, and you see all those flaws through the LUTs. And coming back to the worst footage that I have to grade is it's just something we got from some external facility that we want to use in a certain clip or something, and it already has been graded pretty aggressively, sometimes not too professionally, and then it's just trying to rework what was happening with the LUT and essentially making an anti-LUT. So I think this would be my biggest request, or my wish to Santa would be, for every LUT there should be an anti-LUT, so you can rid it of any footage, because sometimes like I said, you really can see through it. That there's a LUT. And on the other hand, it's orange and teal. I mean, oh my God, everything is orange and teal. I mean, it looks good, but I think we should maybe look into green and purple.
Well, people will sometimes, when they don't need to, people will see the extra controls on DaVinci, and they'll be touching that stuff around when they don't need to. Do you feel that that's a common problem?
Usually it's not so much with the controls, because once they start playing around with the controls, they actually, of course, they can see what it's doing to their image, and usually it's for the better. Like I said, the biggest problem that I have is just people trying out different LUTs and not really working with the software or with their tool. Doesn't matter if it's Resolve or even Lumetri. This again, as soon as you start working with the tool, and even if you're just making your first steps with color grading, figuring out what the tool can do to your footage, this is the first step, in my opinion, in the right direction, right?
Right. We said LUT 20 times here. LUT is a lookup table. It's like a preset. It's a color preset. Think of it like that. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Got to make sure no one leaves. Okay, but let's... I don't know what the fuck a LUT is. Okay, so... Are there certain cameras that you as a colorist love to get? Outside of Arri Alexa and what would be I guess Red Dragon.
Red, right, yeah.
Are there any other cameras that you like seeing?
The Blackmagic cameras are pretty good. actually. I mean, usually for me, it's anything above a certain threshold. If it can shoot log and record to a ideally uncompressed format or low compressed format like ProRes 4x4, or even if it records to its own proprietary log files, raw files, this is very good fine with me. I mean, it also, from the camera perspective, they are pretty good right now. The worst cameras that I had were those Panasonic HVX 200 things, and pretty much anything that records to XD cam. This is just horrid. And then it comes down to the lenses, and but I think I can only say what cameras I don't like, and those are the little action cams. Even phone cameras get pretty good nowadays. And on the other hand,
I hear this a lot. Sony cameras clip the highlights a lot. Do you noticed this? The newer one, not F900.
Not really. Usually, I tend to tell people. Sometimes I work with. When I'm not doing Red Bull jobs, I'm a freelancer besides that. Yeah. So and then I can work and talk to DOPs, which is really a change for something. And usually I tell those if in doubt, overexpose. And when you shoot in log, just overexpose.
If in doubt, overexpose.
Yes.
I've heard the opposite. To be fair, I hear the opposite not from colorists. I hear the opposite from directors of photography. And
when you're shooting on film, I think when you're shooting, there was something that when you're shooting on negative film, or was it also overexposed? Yeah, you see, I'm purely digital.
The process is so film is friendly with the highlights. Film is stronger when it comes to the highlights. So it's it's going to clip to some extent, but there's 14 stops of latitude or dynamic range, and then so they tell you to overexpose with film. And they tell you to underexpose with digital because digital is known for the better shadow range. So you save the highlights in digital by underexposing a bit, and then
I think this was a pre-log capabilities, because this is the problem that I often have with log, or when shooting on log was rather novel to a lot of people. They underexposed because it looks pretty bright on their viewer if they didn't have some kind of LUT on the viewer that transposes it to Rec 709. So it was usually underexposed. And the problem is you can't really flatten out when you're in log a signal, because it will still look pretty fine. And this is why I got a lot of underexposed log footage, and it's really hard to work with. So I still say to this day, overexpose when shooting in log, but if you're shooting in Rec 709 or sRGB or whatever, for example, your phone does, so essentially if you're not shooting raw in a sense, then of course I would say, better.
Oh wait, how do you feel about this iPhone wave? All these guys trying to shoot features on iPhones, is that making you mad?
Not really, no. It looks fine. I've seen so much worse, so this is really fine with me.
Oh, so you'll take the iPhone like base codec?
Pretty much, yes. I've already had a project that was shot not entirely on iPhone, but there were a couple of shots in there, and it looked to me like 5D Mark III or something. So I really didn't notice anything that was really off with them. So I said, it looks. The thing is, if you want to bend and twist it in color grading quite a lot, then of course the image will start to break pretty soon. But if you expose correctly with what you got and your light is fine, then it's really nice pictures. So I have no problem with those.
So with I guess every colorist is going to develop opinions on certain cameras. And a lot of, the big cameras, Arri Alexa, Alexa Mini, Arri Amira, Red Dragon, Red Epic, all that stuff. All the cameras I just named are well over $10,000. And now we're entering the era where, there was the DSLR revolution, but those weren't really, to professionals, they could see the difference. And people who didn't know, they couldn't see the difference, but professionals could see the difference. But now we're entering an era where Blackmagic puts out this thing called the Ursa Mini Pro, 4K sensor, nice. I believe it's 15 stops at dynamic range. And so what I'm asking you is let's stack the Arri Alexa, aside from, throw resolution out of the window, stack the Arri Alexa, which is the premier digital camera that, you can go home and look it up. Huge filmography for that camera. How does that stack up with this new $6,000 Ursa Mini Pro? What are the differences that you've seen as a professional colorist?
I haven't worked that much with Blackmagic footage, since I was lucky to, when I get my stuff, it's usually Alexa or Red. But from some tests that I've had, I was pretty surprised with the dynamic range and color rendition of the Blackmagic camera. So I think it's a pretty good deal right now. I mean, there, of course, when you're shooting with Alexa, you also have to pay for the lenses, which determine the image quality, the final image quality, to a good deal, and so you have probably with the Blackmagic camera. So I mean, you still have to shell out quite a bit of money, but in terms, the Alexa costs now, I think, 3 times as much or even more than the Blackmagic.
On the used market, or what are we talking about?
I'm only looking up the list prices, but I don't from the used market. I don't know, but it's still a lot more, and I don't think that the difference in quality is that high. So
check this out. I was looking at this a little while ago. So you can get a used Ursa Mini Pro on these are American prices, but like you get a used Ursa Mini Pro for about, let's call it like $5,200 US. An Alexa, which probably has superior color science, probably has superior other things, that's going for about $9,000 right now used on eBay. And so my question to you is, the jump between Ursa Mini Pro to Alexa, is that a $4,000 difference to you?
Usually not. I would say I wouldn't say that much. No. I mean, like I said, with the Blackmagic, I was surprised at how good the images look, and the price point is really quite to sell, because I mean, when you get to really footage that's really on the brink of being too underexposed or too overexposed, and when you close to what the medium can save and deliver, of course with the Alexa, you really have kind of wiggle room there to get the image still work. But in the end, I mean, when you want to shoot a movie with a big camera, the chances are that you're pretty much inclined to shoot it and expose it as best as you can, and to the final product you want it to look like. So I don't think that if you expose correctly, you will have a lot of problems. But that said, I mean, even with the DSLRs, even if you shoot H.264, if everything looks right and is correctly exposed and lit on the set, and the color grading in the end is minimal, then even then you can have a great quality picture. Well,
let's see here. This is, and I don't know how much I guess shooting you do as a self shooter, or when I get hired as a shooter for something. What I notice is a selling point that you need to make to clients hiring you is what projects your camera was used for. And so it makes me think, so I could say, Arri Alexa, I'm pondering as to whether there's a $4,000 difference the value is made in being able to get more clientele. Because I don't know what the hell the Ursa Mini Pro, I don't know of any movie that's been shot on.
Right. So it's more of a marketing or
Well, no, absolutely. No.
Question.
I mean, I don't think, so on this angle, like I shoot with, have you ever worked with Sony F900 footage?
Yes.
So I shoot with a Sony F900 right now. Yeah. Camera from 1990. It still looks amazing. What, high quality, the high quality glass for it's cheap now. The Zeiss DigiPrime, it's like nothing.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
They're absolutely nothing. And so I can get that good image quality, but I can't get over 1080p. I only have maybe 11 or 12 stops, probably just 11 stops at dynamic range to work with. And so, but I can tell that guy, they use this camera for the Star Wars prequels. They use this camera for Spy Kids 2, the greatest movie ever. I can do all this, but I don't know. It's have you ever done production jobs, or has all of your stuff strictly been post? I'm very much a post guy. I mean, I was trained as a photographer,
but that's quite a while back with still a darkroom stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've noticed this, that actually the selling point is not what the camera can actually do, or what even for people or for your crew, what they can actually do or have delivered. But the question is, was this shot, was Star Wars, like you said, Star Wars shot with this?
Yeah.
And this is, it's the same, I think, with all tech. Usually they go for the big names. It's just, it's branding pretty much.
Well, no,
it's the same thing with
the branding thing is very true, because I got a client last week, and they were asking, oh, what camera do you shoot with? My music video guy, he shoots on Red. And I'm like, this guy has no idea about cameras, but he heard the name Red. And every cinematographer that or not every cinematographer, because, you know, some guys got to make sure that they stay employed, but like a lot of cinematographers that I talk to, they say Red is the most annoying company because they will spend millions and millions on advertising to where people who don't even shoot cameras have heard of the name Red, but they won't put that money into research and development to like not have loud fans on their camera. And so
yeah, that's pretty true. Yeah,
but it's like, but Arri makes far superior products, but no one's heard of Arri. You need to be in film if you want to know about Arri.
Exactly, yeah.
And
they know they've been there like 80 or even more years now, and made the transition to digital. Yes.
Have you been to the big factory?
Not to the factory, no. Only to the film city near Berlin once.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to go to Mecca. You got to hang out there. I mean, you're like what, 2 feet away from there?
Yeah, in Europe, everything is just around the corner.
Yeah, not Russia. That's pretty far. Let's see here. Well, let's roll it all down with this. Motion pictures that have the best color grading that you've seen. Let's do post digital.
Post digital. That's a hard one. I really like the color in Drive.
Okay.
Drive. It was sometimes a little bit too much, I'd say. But for the film, it worked. It got this fluorescent street lights with the green. So I think there was this orange teal look pretty much justified in a way, because the subject matter was dark, and in my opinion, when I saw it in the theater, I thought this matches.
Right.
Because like I said, usually it's, I mean, not with the big Hollywood stuff, but usually with music videos and something, it's more of a gimmick to have some gaudy color grading on top just thrown on there.
Yeah. All right. Well, Phil Strahl, senior colorist for Red Bull Media House. Is it Red Bull Media House or Red Bulls Media House?
It's Red Bull Media House.
Okay. All right. So where can the people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Phil Strahl. That's oh my god, I have to look up my own name.
Well, we'll have it linked.
Okay.
And then also, what I know about your Twitter, you post lots of color grading tips.
Right.
So if there's people trying to learn, if there's people trying to learn the process, follow them on Twitter. What do you have? You have a couple thousand followers there. Yeah, give him more followers and follow his color grading tips, because you can learn something. You can learn something on the internet.
Distributing them freely for anyone. I mean, I'm reposting them. I think it's now the 3rd year in a row, and I still got a couple, but it's usually just the first. I start first in January and then see how many tips I have for the year, and I'm usually running out sometime around June.
That's good.
But so just look into my history if you want to read some color grading tips.
All right, Phil, we'll see you later. Thanks for coming on the radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.